Good evening, listeners to This Week in Interview and TDN Radio. Welcome to this week's episode of This Week in Interview with your host and guide, Anthony Drago. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, even though it's under very somber circumstances. Tonight's program, dedicating it to say farewell to a young man from Dominica, Mr. Ronald Astaphan, who made his transition yesterday, unexpectedly for most of us. And so a lot of you I know are reeling from the news. But let me say a very good evening to you, my regular listeners. Thank you for coming back every Wednesday to spend an hour or so with me on This Week in Interview. If tonight is the first time that you are hearing This Week in Interview, welcome to you. Those of you who are in Dominica, who may be listening to us or watching on DigiPlay Channel 59, RVR Jams Radio, online radio, carries This Week in Interview live on DigiPlay Channel 59. Also, Radio Online SBE Radio in the Toronto area carries This Week in Interview live. And you can find us on Facebook. We have our Facebook page, This Week in Interview. We have TDN Radio Facebook page, also Instagram and some of the other media places. If that's where you're looking at us tonight and you haven't done so, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell, leave a comment, leave some feedback. Just help us to continue to grow our audience, because on This Week in Interview, we always try to bring you information that is a little packaged differently from what you get in other places. And so the more people that join us is the more impact the information that we bring will have, because our objective is to start a movement. And so, as I said tonight, I am going to focus on Mr. Ronald Astaphan. On June 19th, 2019, Ronald was my guest on this program, This Week in Interview. Um, Ronald Astaphan is not somebody that I have met in person. Um, he went to a different high school than I did. He's younger than I am. And so our paths never crossed in person. But we had a mutual friend, Miss Nicole Georges Bennett. And she made the introduction, and she asked him for my behalf to be my guest, and he agreed. And I was delighted that he agreed, because um, growing up in Dominica, in Roseau, the Guiyave restaurant is a fixture. It was part of the tapestry of Dominica. Most people who come down to Roseau, civil servants gets paid once a month, on month end. Most of them have treat themselves to a meal, breakfast or some lunch at Guiyave restaurant when that happened when we were growing up. And so I had very fond memories of the food at Guiyave, iconic restaurant in Dominica. And so I was really excited that Ronald agreed to be my guest on my program. Um, it was a couple of years, 2 years or so, well, a year and a half after Hurricane Maria. And so our conversation delved into a little bit into those challenges that he was facing, both in terms of cost, but also availability of food, because Hurricane Maria completely wiped out a lot of the agricultural production. So our conversation delved into that. We spoke on his own personal passion of food, um, philosophy behind the way he ran the restaurant, we had restaurant, and we were talking because in 2020 they were going to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Guiyave, and we thought of a project that we would do where we would create a book, a nice coffee tabletop book with pictures and recipes, and that reflected the vibrancy of Guiyave, and while at the same time telling the story of the development and the journey of Dominican cuisine through, highlighting experiences of the Guiyave restaurant. But we all know what happened in 2020. COVID happened, and COVID shut everything down and postponed plans and changed plans and so on. And so that project was shelved for a minute. And then by the time we got it back together, we have closed. So Ronald and I, we kept in touch. Even though we had never met in person, we kept in touch. We would say, exchange greetings and pleasantries every so often. Um, and so when I heard the news that he had transitioned out of this physical realm into the spiritual realm, I I was shocked. It was unexpected. And so I can imagine what it felt like for the folks who know him personally, who interacted with him personally. So let me first of all say a heartfelt sympathy and condolences to his family, his friends, and everybody who knew him. His employees, his colleagues, his compatriots. From myself and from TDN Network, a heartfelt condolences to you. I know that as the acuteness of the pain starts to dissipate, those of you who knew him will have memories of him um, that will help you to go through this difficult time. Um, he was well. He seemed like he was well respected and well liked. What seemed to be a very spontaneous outpouring of grief, of mourning, of disbelief at the news of his passing. And I usually say that as the host of This Week in Interview, I get to talk to folks that I wouldn't normally talk to, because folks are busy, they go about their lives, I go about my life, and you don't normally get to interact with people. But as the host of This Week in Interview, I get to speak to quite a few people. I get to learn a lot. And unfortunately, sometimes the conversations that I have with those folks are one of the records of their lives, because they transition soon after that. Come to mind is Jerry George of St. Vincent, who transitioned. Um, just this year, we had Ken Richards. I also had a conversation with Ken Richards, and Jamaican journalist Beverly Sinclair also transitioned, and now Ronald. And so, you know, I find it a privilege to have that conversation with them, where they open up and shared their expertise and their knowledge with people. It also is a really somber um, position to be in. And so, as I was saying, is that in June of 2019, it's pre-COVID, I had this conversation with Ronald, and I learned so much. But one of the things that struck me was his his high regard for Dominican cuisine. And he was a very qualified person in that field, not only as a restaurant owner, but somebody who was trained in the culinary arts. And so his judgment was also, from a technical point of view. And as you listen to the conversation, you will see what I'm talking about. He didn't take Dominican cuisine for granted. He held it in high esteem. He compared it to the food on any of the islands in the Caribbean. And he said, as a matter of fact, he thinks only Trinidad would probably be slightly ahead of Dominica in terms of depth and variety and flavor of the food. So I hope I'm not going to take too much time, because the conversation with Ronald took an hour. I'm going to let you listen to the conversation that we had. And I will come back in somewhere around the middle of it, so we can just touch a little bit and then at the end. But I think in his own words and his expressions, you will find a fitting tribute. So let's listen to Ronald and myself as we conversed in 2019. Is Mr. Ronald Astaphan. He is the manager, owner, co-owner and manager of Guiyave. If when you come to Roseau and or you want to have there are several eating places in Roseau, some of them more casual than others. But if you want somewhere that's formal enough but still have that friendly vibe, that friendly atmosphere, if you have a visitor and you want to take them, like even like a business, some person visiting or a business meeting, and you want to take them to somewhere where you would have a semi-private space and reliably assured that the food is not going to be disappointing, more often than not, Guiyave is the place that you take your guests to. It has been like that since the inception. Guiyave was started in 1981 by Mrs. Hermina Astaphan, and it's still going, believe it or not. In Dominica is a tough environment to do business. The restaurant business in Dominica is brutal. We've not been a community that has a long tradition of eating out. At least that's what I think. I might get corrected by Ronald, but Dominicans tend to cook a lot of their own food, but yet still, even in that kind of environment, Guiyave has been able to sustain itself and thrive, and has become a permanent fixture in Dominica and Roseau. So Ronald, a very warm welcome to you on This Week in Interview. It's such a pleasure to have you. I was really delighted when you told me yes, you could be my guest on This Week in Interview. So welcome.
Thank you, Anthony. Good evening to you and good evening to your listeners, and especially the customers of Guiyave and the Dominican populace. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you to discuss the Dominican cuisine and Guiyave's role in promoting Dominican cuisine.
Yes, and so I always like to let my guests introduce themselves and to give a background of themselves in general, but also in relation to the topic. And so I'm going to let you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our guests. We have most of our guests are Dominicans. Some of them living on island. I think the majority of them living out of Dominica in Europe, North America. But we also have a strong following from like Grenada, St. Vincent, Trinidad, and all over. We even have some people that live in Asia that tune in every week. I'm just saying that so you understand that it's not just a Dominican audience. But take a few minutes, just tell us who you are, give us your background in the restaurant business, and so that people understand your authority in the field.
Hi, my name is Ronald Astaphan, as you mentioned. I'm the second son of Hugo and Hermina Astaphan. My mom, Hermina Astaphan, founded Guiyave 28 years ago, 1981, July 1981. And she ran it by herself for a very long time until I joined her in 1989, October 1989, after I did a 2-year course in Cyprus at the Culinary Institute in Cyprus. So I do have some formal training in culinary arts, which included food costing, enology, which is the making of wine, the studying of wine, sanitary conditions. We did a little of everything. Pastry, main dishes. We did theoretical classes, we did practical classes, and we also had to be attached to a restaurant or a hotel during a period of that course. It was a very interesting experience. And living in Dominica at 17 years old, I was mommy's little boy. I knew I wanted to join mommy at the restaurant because honestly, I couldn't make up my mind what else I wanted to do. And I just wanted out of school. And I used to enjoy being at the restaurant with her during the summer vacations and so forth. And I think what made me make up my mind was one night when she was open at night. I was there helping, and I ended up serving a group of people, a family actually. And the lady was so happy that she gave me $100 tip. I thought, okay, this is where I belong.
Yes.
So I did that course. I came back here, and with my help, my mom had already been in the business for a period of time, and so we formed a mother-son duo team. We began to expand the business. She came up with the idea to open the patisserie. She runs a wide range of local pastries, snacks, low-cost lunches, beverages, and stuff like that. While she did that, I started to focus on catering. And as the time grew on, we built up on that. And whilst the team was really good, or is really good, because she was normally at the at the restaurant, ensuring that the quality of the food that we offer our guests is up to mark, as local as it can possibly get, as enticing to the eye, because you eat with your eyes first before your tongue and your mouth. And I would be at the venue ensuring that the setup and the experience for the client will complement the food that we serve. So it's been interesting, to say the least, over the years. Many ups and downs.
I know when normally when we have an idea of a guest, there's a few people that I bounce the idea off, or they will ask me, "Who's your guest this week?" There is a program that we do on a Friday morning. Sam does that on a Friday morning, and I usually call in for the last half hour of the show from Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And when I said that my guest was going to be you and from Guiyave restaurant, without fail, Guiyave. Oh, I remember Guiyave. I when we used to go to Roseau, that's one thing I used to look forward to, going to Guiyave. It's almost a reaction. I don't know. When we were growing up, we used to go to warehouse on a Saturday. So there's so many of us that has that kind of reaction when somebody says, "Warehouse, this go." Is that I got that same kind of response from the audience, from my listeners, when I said I was going to have you on, and we were going to talk about Guiyave. It just brought back a whole lot of memories to people. And even your name Guiyave is for those that don't know, is the Creole for fruit guava, and in itself it suggests organically Dominican, organically local. So what does it mean to you, and how much effort do you put into trying to be authentically Dominican in your recipes and your cuisine?
Well, first, let me thank Nicole Georges for hooking us up together.
Yes, she's a
big fan of Guiyave. And many people don't know that Alvin Boulay is the one who designed the Dominica flag.
Yes.
And he also named Guiyave, and he also did the logo for Guiyave.
This beautiful logo, yes.
Yes, so he also did that. Even before I joined the team, my mother would insist that everything be as fresh as possible. So it has always been part of our mantra, or our theory, to keep stuff as local as possible. We try to take stuff and give it an international twist, right? A lot of people come here and they want to see sliced provisions on the menu every day, which can get pretty boring for visitors or regular eaters. So we would take all the ground provisions and we would do different things with them.
Right.
So it's just a matter of exploring what we can do with what we have. And there's so much we can do.
Right.
right now we are working with a French chef and consultant, Mark Lesdemer, who is helping us to move to another level
Mm-hmm.
in terms of making our food healthier, introducing different menus that are acceptable or interesting to people with different or sophisticated palates, right? And the interesting thing about working with him is that everything is local. So we are slowly trying to move away from using additives, using any kind of artificial flavoring, which is something that is widely used in the West Indian culinary dishes, stuff like seasoning salts, cubes, bohayo, that kind of stuff like that. But there's
Right.
so much stuff that we have locally that can explode when it comes to flavors. That we are now experimenting with those things because after 38 years in the business, and we realize that we have to move on. We have to change. It's no longer business as usual. We have to change stuff to meet with the needs and the requirements of our customers. But at the end of the day, it's still very, very, very important to us to stay as fresh and local as possible.
It's interesting that you say that, a lot of West Indian cooking has some of these processed seasoning, cube, bouillon, bohayo, and all of that. Where in a place like Dominica, where the herbs are so potent. So I like that concept that you're trying to replace a lot of that processed seasoning with fresh local seasoning. So let's talk a little bit about the Dominican palate, because you've been in it for 38 years in a formal way. What is your, as as somebody who is trained in the business, the theory of it, the practical of it. Some people have the impression that maybe the Dominican palate is not as sophisticated. Maybe it's difficult to define. Maybe it's limited. It's narrow. I just want to get your take on it. What is where was it? Where is it now? Where do you see it going? If you understand what I'm asking.
For sure. Before I get into that, let me just stress that in spite of the additives or the thing, we do use a lot of local seasonings. Mm-hmm. One of our biggest costs is local seasoning. And actually, I'm cutting that down by doing my own farming also of some of my vegetables and seasonings. So we get it as fresh as possible. And that's one of the most pleasurable things you can enjoy. Going into your own personal garden and picking stuff to cook right away.
And sharing it with your customers.
And sharing it with your customers.
That I think is
I mean, when you grow that and you see the success, I mean, you have failures. I mean, agriculture is a risky thing.
Right.
But when you have good quality stuff, it's really a good feeling. And when you prepare that for the customers, you really feel reassured that you are giving your customers the healthiest, freshest produce available. Now, having said that, with the Dominican palate, a lot of people like comfort food. No matter where you go, everybody has their own comfort food. And a lot of us Dominicans have comfort food. Now, I'm a broth guy. I can eat broth Monday to Sunday. That's not a problem. I love it. But more and more, we are being contacted by people, or we meet people, even family and friends who travel and who read or who educate themselves, and they find different things that they want to try, and they're very interested in trying new items, new things that may not be widely available in Dominica, or maybe still considered delicacies in Dominica. But generally, over the 38 years we've been in business, and for me, the 28 years I've been with Guiyave, you're definitely seeing that increase in that type of palate. So that is something that we have to move on. Dominicans, I think the only other English-speaking Caribbean island that can compete with Dominica on our local food might be Trinidad.
Oh, really? Is that?
Yeah. I personally, that's my view. I don't think there's any other Caribbean island that can touch Dominica on the authenticity, the explosion of flavors, the naturalness of our food, right? St. Lucia might be a little close. St. Lucia is like our sister, but there's still a lot of difference.
Right.
From a lot of St. Lucians that I meet, they don't have smoked meats in St. Lucia. That's one of the things that's really crazy to me, you know?
Oh, really?
When St. Lucians come to Dominica and they come to Guiyave and have a broth, they go wild, you know? So
yeah, my experience with Grenadians as well, they do a lot of dried. They do more dried fish, like sun-dried fish than smoked. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, not just the smoke, but just the whole concept of that water, seasoned water with all that flavor and so on, and the notion that it's good for the waist, you know. So solutions like Campari because of that. But they definitely love the ground provisions, you know, and the way we do a broth. They have the broth, but it's different. But in a nutshell, I think Dominica is the leading place in the English-speaking Caribbean for food.
Wow, I didn't think of it that way, but that's
we've proven that, you know.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned before that when you mentioned that Guiyave was, or I representing Guiyave was going to be your guest, that you got a very good response, and that is one thing we get from our returning Dominicans, that their main comment is that they are guaranteed consistency. They know that when they come to Guiyave, that they can definitely know what they're going to get. You know, like everybody else, sometimes we surpass that and sometimes we not reach that. We're humans, you know, but we work very hard with our team, and we have a very hard-working team. You know, I have 2 staff members who are with us even before I joined. They're with us for over 2 years. You know, we have about 3 or 4 staff members with us for over 10 years, and another 3 or 4 with over 5 years. So we have a good base, we have a good team. And even if I might be the face of Guiyave, being always out there, my mom, Ronald Astaphan, plays a very important role in the quality of the food. And it all boils down to the team. Both of us, I can't do it on my own. She can't do it on her own. We can't do it together on our own. We can only do it together with our team. And we do have a pretty good team.
Yeah. So let me take a pause. Listeners, if you joined us late, my guest tonight on This Week in Interview is Mr. Ronald Astaphan. Ronald, along with his mother, Hermina, the operators of the Guiyave restaurant. And I did neglect to say at the top of the show that we are carrying this interview live on our Facebook page as well. So if you want to see us while we do, you can go to This Week in Interview Facebook page. I think Ronald also has it shared on his page as well. So I am happy that you spoke about the role that your team plays in the business. Because one of the criticisms that we hear the most about Dominican businesses is customer service. And I don't ever remember getting bad customer service at Guiyave. And it's obvious that it's not my unique experience, just from the fact that people keep coming back. So I don't want to ask how do you do it, but let's talk about that a little bit, because everybody thinks that is a challenge in doing business in Dominica. Where do you get good workers from, reliable workers that's going to make your customers feel welcome, like you appreciate their business, and you guys have been able to do it for this long, and like you say, you have staff who is with you. So who cracks the whip, if that's the case, or but let's just talk about the whole management of business.
Depends on which staff member you ask as to who cracks the whip. You know, definitely human resource in Dominica is a major issue. Customer service in Dominica is a major issue. We feel like we are trying our best, but we still have a long way to go. There's still a lot of improving to do. We get a lot of compliments from visitors or customers about our customer service, and we feel really good about that. And that sinks down to my core staff, right? That have been there with us for years. They may not be able to carry plates all the way up their arms, but they give you that come home feeling.
Right.
You know, which is what really the Caribbean is about. That's what we're trying to portray, to make you feel at home, make you feel comfortable, right? And it is definitely a challenge in terms of what I noticed a lot in Dominica. Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody about that with my barbers, that once you start coming to a place regularly, the staff tend to get too comfortable with you.
Right.
And they kind of forget that you, at the end of the day, you're a customer, you know? Excuse me. So that is one of the things that I try to remind my staff, that no matter how often a customer comes in, it's nice that we know their name and everything. You feel, even when I go somewhere, once the person or the staff knows my name, I feel special because I know they know me and they more than likely know what I like.
Right.
And so, but I have to keep reminding myself and my staff that we have to keep striving for better. We have to be cognizant of not getting too comfortable with the customers in terms of crossing that line. You know, sometimes I've been to businesses where a customer is in and they have a very good relationship with the staff, and the conversation going on there is not appropriate for somebody who's not used to that environment or
right.
the business. So I try to remind my staff of that. You know, definitely that is something that you work on 24/7. You can't stop.
So do you have like a formal orientation or regular training, or is it just as you go along you train your staff?
Most of the time is as we go along, we train our staff. When we can, we do provide training, but most of the time we find it's more important and it's more advantageous to do on-the-job training.
Right. So as you go along, you do on-the-job training. Okay. So, but also, I noticed on your Facebook page you have a mention of you as an instructor at the regional level. Can you talk about what you did there a little bit, because that might inform how you're able to transfer that to your staff?
It was about 2004, I think, around that time. A colleague through the what then was the NDC, which was Kimito, who is now with the OAS. I think she's maybe the third or fourth top ranking OAS official now. She called me while I was on vacation. I was in Chicago, and she says, "Ronald, you know, I'm with the OAS now, and we have this program coming up, and I recommended you for it." So I'm like, "What program is this?" She said, "We want you to do a toolkit and explain that this toolkit must incorporate the use of local products. And this is to be used for small hotels and restaurants around the Caribbean so that they can use more local products that can benefit the local economy, the farmers, and, you know, trickle down to other areas of the society."
Right.
And you will be working with the Culinary Institute of America, and you'll be going to different islands to do training. At first, I'm like, "Okay, well, Kim, I know my stuff, but I'm not sure if I can do this." She's like, "Ronald, you know what? I'm not taking no for an answer. You know, all I'm telling you, I need to get your resume by that time, and we're gonna move from then." And she just basically hung up and says, "I don't have a choice." You know what I mean? So at that time, I did more theory. My mom was the one really doing all the practicals. I spoke to her about it, pulled her in. I also pulled in Michael Eugene, who helped me kind of put everything together, you know, all the recipes my mom provided and the input from me and everything. We put them together and we did a toolkit for the OAS, Organization of American States. And we worked with Chef Mark Ainsworth from the Culinary Institute. And we went to Antigua, Bahamas, Belize, and Kitts. In Bahamas, we did Dominica, St. Lucia, and Bahamas. and Antigua, Belize. Yeah, I think that's it. So that was really interesting, to have to put all these menus together and to ensure that they were really local and everything like that. It was a huge success. They were very happy with it. I built up a good relationship with the chef from Culinary Institute of America, and that gave me the kind of confidence to push further, for our catering and just basically educating people about Dominica and food and what we can do with what we have and not rely on imported stuff.
So that puts into light even more when you say that you think the only other English-speaking Caribbean island that competes with Dominica in terms of food, the cuisine is Trinidad, because you've actually, from that point of view, experienced quite a few of the other islands. So let's talk about Dominica food, the vibrancy. What's your favorite dish to prepare if there is one? Which ones get the best response from your customers, which are the most requested? Let's just talk about Dominican food. Let us say that there's a group coming to Dominica, and we want to talk to them about when they get to Dominica, what they can expect in terms of Dominican food and describing our recipes and stuff like
that. Dominica has so much to offer. The spectrum is so wide. There's so much to offer. In terms of Dominica is known a lot for warm pots.
Mm-hmm.
Even if curry may not be our tradition, but I think we do one of the best curry goats. I know a Guyanese lady who, Guyanese call it goat curry. Mm-hmm. And she thinks Guiyave does one of the best goat curries she's ever had. And that comes from a Guyanese are known for their curries. Mm-hmm. Also. Our fresh fish, because of our setup in Dominica, almost every village or every other village has a fishing community. So fresh fish is a must. It is a very, very rare occasion where we have to use imported fish. Right? So stuff like that. But Guiyave, I think one of our most popular dishes, which is not a regular, is crabapes. Right?
I remember Guiyave. Yes.
People go wild over that, and I might have to admit that I probably eat Guiyave's profit on that too. I can't just eat one.
Right. Guiyave is known for their crabapes. That's right.
Mm-hmm. I've had people who are allergic to shellfish come in here and work with medication just so they can have their crabapes. Mm-hmm. And so our callaloo soups, our pumpkin soups, all the different types of soup. Saturdays at Guiyave is one pot. So we feature rotis, pilau, sauce, black pudding, broth, which will be fish or smoked pork, so you can get a mixture of both. Now, we do our broth separate, right? So that there's no mixture with pork and fish, that kind of stuff like that. So if you have vegetarians and stuff like that, it is all safe, Right. And our vegetables are done separately, so then you get that vibrant color when it comes to presentation in your broth. We'll do our bullfoot soup, red bean soup with pigtail, goat water, and so on. Our local, like stewed chicken, curry chicken, barbecue chicken, anything of that sort. But we do a lot of stuff with the local products. Like my mom came up with this dish, whitey kubuli plantain. Now we know whitey kubuli means tall is a body. So basically we cut the plantain lengthwise, we pan fry it so it becomes pliable, we roll it, stuff it with spinach, top it with cheese and bake it. Right? So that is a very popular
that sounds,
and she also came up with plantain and shredded coconut, where we did a batter, passed the plantain through that, and then fresh coconut and deep fried. So I don't know if you ever remember in school having baked and coconut cheese. that kind of gives you the idea of what coconut would taste.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I remember Kamala John Baptist came here to meet with some clients, and she's not a lover of plantain. And she was gonna have lunch. I'm like, you gotta have that. She's like, no, I don't like plantain. I said, promise, have it. If you don't like that alone, you get everything free. And she fell in love with it.
Right.
We make our own ice cream, right? We
Wow.
make our own fruit flavored ice cream. We try to do our own ice cream in house. So we try to do everything locally. All our desserts, pastries, everything is done in house and done freshly every day.
Let's talk about your juices. I know you carry a range of local juices.
Yeah. Thank God, right now, since the hurricane, fruits are coming back in swing now.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that we are known for. In the past, many restaurants would use syrups, bellow syrups to make juices. Excuse me, sorry. That was never allowed in Guiyave. Everything had to be fresh. Everything had to be fresh. So on any given day, once fruits are available, you can have a choice of maybe 5 to 6 different flavor juices.
Dominica have juices that I don't taste anywhere else. Our passion fruit juice is different. Our grapefruit juice is different. Everything.
I remember going to St. Lucia with some friends for the jazz festival, and we went to a restaurant, and I'm like, what fresh fruit juices do you have? She's like, orange. I'm like, is it fresh? She says, yes, it's freshly opened. No, Dominica, this doesn't work. This doesn't work, So Dominica is a place that, again, one of the few places in the Caribbean that you get that wide variety of fresh fruit juices.
Mm-hmm.
For now, at this present time, we have an abundance of guava cherry. I'm not sure if you've ever had that.
Yep.
Guava cherry, passion fruits, pineapples are in full swing right now, right? We're getting mangoes.
Mangoes, yeah.
So we're doing fruit punch and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, yeah.
And I know at Christmas time, you guys do a wicked sorrel.
Sorrel and ginger beer. Sorrel and ginger beer. So we are looking forward this year to getting fresh sorrel. Last year it came in a little bit, but not as plentiful as other years. So we're looking forward to get that fresh sorrel. Because you have the regular, you have the white, and you have the premium, that extra red sorrel. Yeah.
So I'm listening to you talk, and you say they're coming back in, and you really just say it past. But I know when our agriculture gets devastated by a hurricane, especially since you strive so much to use local products in your recipes, what's the challenge like that you face when you have a event such as Hurricane Maria that wipes out pretty much all of the crop, and you have a hard time getting local? That must be a real challenge.
Well, after Maria business was just not as usual. So we knew we could not get that. So we had to resort to a lot of processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, stuff like yams were readily available because they were underground. They did not get that damage.
Oh, okay.
Like the bananas and so.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get some plantain. The plantain was able to survive. Even if they fell, then they would ripe,
mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So we would get minimal amount. So we try to make the best use of that as possible. I remember when we first started to start back with fig and saltfish. People were just going crazy. People who would normally complain, oh, I don't need provision or so, after not having it for such a long period of time, the craving just developed again, because in spite of it all, the nutritional value of those items, those food products, and the buoyancy because of the fillingness of them plays a major part. There was a time when I felt Dominicans didn't feel for quality; they just wanted quantity.
Mm-hmm.
But that has been changing over the past 15 years or more. People want that balance between quantity and quality, and people are getting a lot more health conscious. So when people like Alex Bruno and other interviewers spoke to a lot of our centenarians, they would stress on the importance of fresh food,
right.
The provisions and stuff like that. So this is something that Guiyave will never run away from, and will always be a major part of Guiyave. Even if we do croquettes, we do different items, we do different ways, we will always use the local products.
So, in terms of your recipes, so listeners, um, you see what I talk about when I mentioned that this conversation was just so it made so much of an impression on me. I learned so much about Dominican food and Dominican cuisine, and Ronald was in his element, his area of passion, an area that he demonstrably knew well and was comfortable in. And it's such a shame watching that interview and then knowing that a few years later, Guiyave would no longer be with us, go out of business. And when we heard of the closing of Guiyave, it almost felt similar to the news of the passing of Ronald, because it has become such a part of what it is to be Dominican. And one of the things that we are lacking in Dominica is the formal organization of our cuisine. And folks like Ronald and establishments like we have. I know we have more. We usually have professional chefs at some of the restaurants like Fort Young Hotel and so on. But Guiyave was homegrown. When you go to Guiyave and you have a meal, it, it's similar to the meal that you would have at your home, you know. And so, do you agree that just watching him in a sense, so I hope it eases up a little bit the pain that you feel right now as you understand that this young man, and I'm saying young, I'm intrigued at how young both Ronald and myself look in that video. It was 4 years ago, and we looked like teenagers. COVID seemed to have done its share, right? But no, but seriously though, he was so passionate and so um, just into that, and he says at 17 he went out to study and he came back. So that's pretty much all he knew, and I can imagine how he felt when he had to um, finally close his door and and say that he's out of business. So I don't know if we can bring up some of the comments. Or, there's a line across it. I cannot make it out too well. Sam, can you change the position a little bit? There's a yeah. The stimulus package was meant, and yeah, on the screen it's right on the line that we have there. Let me see if I can find it on Facebook. Um, bear with me. I just wanted to take some of the comments. Um, but no, but folks are generally expressing their lament um, at the passing of Ronald, because he was such an icon in Dominica, such an icon in food. And Marcelin was says the stimulus package disappeared again. I'm sorry. We'll just forget about the comments for tonight because they're not showing up clearly on the screen. Um, but what I'm saying is that just watching that video, folks, we have to appreciate our people. We have to appreciate our Dominicanness, okay? And we have to be able to record a lot of these proceeds and so on. All right. So let me not take too much of your time. You're watching an interview I did with Mr. Ronald Astaphan from Guiyave. I did it in 2019, pre-COVID. And after that, we went into COVID. That was in June 2019. So 6 months later, we were on lockdown because of COVID. And so the a lot of the plans that they had, the celebration of that they were planning for Guiyave, the 40th celebration, that went under. So let's close the interview, and we will take it up from there. You are on This Week in Interview, and we're paying tribute to Mr. Ronald Astaphan by replaying this conversation that he and I had about his passion for food. Stay tuned for the remainder. Tourism in Dominica is developing. It's still maybe still budding. How do you make your dishes to be able to satisfy that international market, the cruise ship visitors, the overnight stays, businessmen, to sort of still introduce them to Dominican food, but still make it so that they can not be afraid of it and think like it's something exotic. How do you balance that? Well, we want to keep our Dominican heritage, our Dominican flavor, but still make it international enough that it's recognizable.
I think the biggest difference for these clients probably would be that we don't, in our local cuisine, we don't use as much boneless meats as the Americans or the Europeans would. Mm-hmm. Chicken breast is not a major thing here. Anybody who is a meat eater will know that the flavor comes from closer to the bone.
Right.
Closer to the bone you get, the more flavor you get. As long as we do not spice it up too much, because a lot of the Europeans and Americans are not able to digest these heavily spicy foods. So we have to find that balance that is acceptable for our locals and also for the visitors. Again, like we'll go back to when it comes to our carbs, our local produce like the dashin, yams, tanya, couscous, and so on, kush and so. We do different things, like we would mix kush with Irish potato, do rosettes, so that we can use that. You can do croquettes with dashin, yam, plantains, or even a mixture of all of them, different pies. We do puffs. Breadfruit puffs is one of our more popular dishes also. Even most people are used to the stuff like scallop potato, but then we do scallop breadfruit, we do scallop yam, we do scallop plantains.
Wow.
So all these things, when you have the cheese sauce incorporated with that, it makes it a lot more acceptable to the foreigner's palate.
Right.
So just some of the items. There's so many other things that we could do with that.
So it's a recipe that they're familiar with using local ingredients. So
Right. It may not be as light. For instance, the normal culinary or a normal chef doing a puff would fold egg whites into whatever it is they're making the puff of. But for us, we don't do it as light as that because we know our locals want something a little more substantial, a little heavier, because a lot of our clients, a lot of our customers are always on the go. And they need something to sustain them for the day, But we still try to find that balance where it's not too heavy, right? That the foreigners can accept, but it's not too light that the Dominicans will be unhappy. Because no Dominican wants to get a puff with a air bubble, half of it in there.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Now you do pastries as well.
Yeah, we do a wide range of pastries.
Let's talk about that aspect of your business.
Even the pastry, the actual pastry itself was developed after years of trial and error and experimenting with my mom, until she got it the way she wanted it. And this is something that I don't think any other place in Dominica has the quality pastry that we have in terms of a local recipe. We do a wide range of pies, both small and large. Chicken, beef, fish, vegetable, spicy chicken. Mm-hmm. We do various quiche, spinach, bacon, tuna, sausage rolls, donuts, cakes. The cakes is my specialty. That's what I do.
Okay.
But now at Guiyave, I'm the one making the cakes, decorating the cakes, and everything like that. You know, we do pizza, we do bakes, pate banana. You can't forget pate banana. This is something that a lot of people come for. And I have a friend who lives and works in Martinique and comes over with students on a regular basis. And she would place her order way in advance for 50, 60 pate banana because that is one of the cultural experiences that she wants the students to have, to taste what pate banana is. You know?
Nice. You know, I really like what you do. But maybe I'm just not as in touch as I should be, but I don't have the impression that Dominican cuisine is I live organized is the word, or like formally organized. Like for example, you know, Trinidad seem to be very organized and maybe a little more advanced and developed in terms of their cuisine, their different types of foods that they have. Maybe it's because they have international restaurants that are specifically Trinidad restaurants. You understand what I'm asking? So as somebody who is in the industry, how would you like to see Dominican cuisine? Like when people ask me, what is Dominica's dish? I have to cast in my mind, you know. Maybe it would be nice to go somewhere and see, you know, okay, I can point them to a website, or I point them to a cookbook or something. Is there a need for that to be a little more organized? And if there is, how would you go about
it? Yes, definitely. I mean, first, we in the industry have to learn to work together more. Mm-hmm. For instance, Guiyave is probably definitely one of the largest catering establishments. We have catered for as much as 650 people for one event.
Right.
But we can only do that with the limited space and resources that we have by partnering with other food establishments. So that is something that we try to do as much as possible. And that allows us to be able to handle events back to back and very large events. So we do our research with the other food establishments. Guiyave can't provide food to the entire Dominican populace by themselves. So we are not going to ignore the others, you know, right. And we determine who can do what. And, you know, we ensure that the quality is at least of Guiyave standards or even higher than Guiyave standards.
Right.
Then we sample it, we take control of it, and then we can go on. There's definitely a lot of our people in that industry do not work together. I will tell you, one of the people that worked best with us over the years was a Jamaican chef, Fort Young had. You know, I mean, it got to a point where he was so comfortable with us and we were so comfortable with him that he would just walk into my kitchen and basically take whatever he needed in terms of equipment or utensils that he may have needed, you know? And he tried to push that a lot. And so, Guiyave will come out with a cookbook.
And that was actually going to be my next question. That was actually
a cookbook. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of plans in place for 40th anniversary, which will be in 2021. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of that had to be put on the shelf because of the hurricane. For at least 6 months after the hurricane, our business practically quadrupled because we were one of the first establishments to reopen after the hurricane.
Right.
Luckily, we were not damaged by the hurricane severely, but we were damaged by the looters. But we were still able to get back on track quickly. I think it was about 3 weeks. Within 3 weeks, we were able to reopen. And so again, because of the hard work of my team, you know, they really push.
3 weeks after Hurricane Maria.
Yeah, I think it was.
Wow. Well, even if it's 4 weeks or 5 weeks, it's still an accomplishment.
I think it was October 6th or something like that. We reopened. And we were actually able to have a good Creole day, you know. But even that time was difficult. Even if our sales quadrupled, we were not making money because it was a matter of just providing the service for the service Dominicans needed badly.
Feeding the people, yeah.
Feeding people. and the cost of everything had skyrocketed. And even if the unit price of something didn't skyrocket, to get it took forever, you know?
Right.
None of our suppliers were able to deliver. So we had to physically have staff go to each supplier and get stuff. Again, because of a good relationship with some friends from St. Lucia, we were able to get a boatload of stock in to really keep us going, you know? Because a lot of customers just wanted that, what they were used to, that comfort food, to make them feel that there was hope, you know?
Yeah.
Make them feel like, okay, well, this is something familiar from before the hurricane. I'm getting it again, so there is hope that we can move on to the next, we can get through to the next day, and then tomorrow we will fight to get to the next day.
Yeah, just seeing Guiyave open for service in itself would have been like a beacon. Do you have special relationship with farmers? Like you have farmers who supply stuff to you regularly? Do you have that type of relationship?
Yes, we do have some farmers.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Mero, in the heights of Mero. My home is used as an event venue for weddings, corporate parties, anything.
Okay.
Right? So we've done quite a few events up there. So I try to develop a relationship with the farmers in Mero, because a lot of those farmers from Salisbury, Mero, St. Joseph go up into Cahome, which is one of the most productive farming areas on the West Coast. Right? So we try to get as much of our produce from them as possible. We still support the vendors at the market. You know, every Wednesday and Friday, Saturday, we go to the market and see what's available. And so, but generally we try to get direct from farmers.
Yeah, because that type of liaison, collaboration between the restaurant and the farmers, I think is important, because
it's very important,
because you can kind of tell them the quality that you want, and have a little more control on the input. That's awesome. I'm getting some feedback that you need to do the recipe book. I got like 3 texts right there. No, I think that it would be huge. And that question that I asked you about the development of Dominican cuisine as something formal, I think a Guiyave cookbook that shows recipes from Dominica, because so much of your food is local, while you tracing, the evolution and the growth of Guiyave, I think would be a good record of that. So I think that's something that your customers are looking forward to.
Definitely, that's definitely on the plan. As we build our team and we get more of a secure team where both my mom and myself can branch out into other areas instead of being involved in the actual day-to-day production of everything, we definitely will be putting that together. I think the last cookbook that came out from Dominica was from Miss Latig, maybe way in the 80s.
A while back, yeah.
That was a long.
I just bought one. I just bought a copy on Amazon a couple months ago.
Yeah. But so much has changed. So much has evolved since then that I think it will be fitting. Hopefully, by our 40th anniversary, we should have that, at least, if not ready, but on the way.
Certainly. Let me give you an opportunity to make a plug for your business. Talk about Guiyave to people that are planning to come down, people that are in Dominica, whatever aspect, your catering business, we haven't touched on that too much. So, take a couple minutes and encourage people to action.
As we mentioned before, Guiyave has been in operation for almost 4 decades. So Guiyave is a staple. We have been in the same location for that long. Right? We have to be doing something right to survive that long.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of destination weddings. We customize each event to the client. Mm-hmm. So I sit personally with the client to determine their wants, their needs, whether there's any special dietary restrictions among themselves or their family or their guests, and so forth. When you visit Dominica, you're looking for somewhere where you're going to be guaranteed quality, consistency, Guiyave is definitely the place. Guiyave is the oldest serving restaurant in Roseau. And I have been told it might be the oldest family-owned restaurant in the Caribbean. That I cannot prove, that I cannot say for sure. But I have been told that by a few people. But definitely, Guiyave has survived everybody else. Those who've opened up after us with the aims of closing us down have downsized, and we are slowly expanding. So, I mean, you're looking for safety, one of the cleanest environments, and one of the funny things in Dominica is that because Guiyave is one of the cleanest, or maybe the cleanest restaurant in Dominica, people have a notion that we are expensive. You know, or it kind of makes them sit back. But when we do our research, we are not more expensive than anywhere else. When you consider quality, service, cleanliness, hygiene, and nutritional value. So Guiyave is it for everybody.
So how is somebody's interested in using your service? Your Facebook page? Where do they get a hold of?
The Messiah Thomas, who contacted you earlier on today to organize all this, is our IT guy. I'm not much of an IT person, so he's slowly building up on our Facebook page and everything like that.
Right.
But to contact
but you do have a Facebook page, huh?
We do have a Facebook page, which he's managing right now.
Yeah.
And right now, so we are slowly building up on that. We're beginning to post our menus every day, pictures about the food and stuff like that. But generally, somebody will contact me via phone, 767-448-2930, or via email, guiyavemanagement@gmail.com.
Guiyavemanagement@gmail.
Yes, guiyavemanagement@gmail.com, and then we can begin the process of discussing what you'd like and ensuring that we meet your needs and that you have a wonderful event.
The last question, one of the last questions I want to ask you is about meats. I know we spoke about chicken and so on, but do you get a lot of local meats, or some of your better quality meats imported? How do you manage their sourcing?
The local meats we use are pork and beef.
Okay.
Get from specific suppliers.
Right.
I still think that some of our butchers need to do more training.
That's my impression.
To have that fresh smell, aroma from the fresh meats eradicated. I figure it's a matter of not being hung properly, the blood not being drained out properly. Actually, I'm just talking to this. I began a couple of weeks ago talking to this young guy who is in the local chicken industry, and I'm hoping to start at least once a week using local chicken instead of imported chicken. There is a disadvantage in terms of it is a lot more expensive. So
it's a lot more expensive.
Yes, it's a lot more expensive. Local chicken goes anywhere from $6, $7 a pound, whereas the imported chicken is like $3 a pound wholesale.
It's like twice as
much.
On
average, twice as much. So I've been trying to figure out how are we going to do this without increasing the prices.
Right.
Salaries are not going up much in Dominica, although was it today? Yeah, today we implemented the salary increase for our staff here, and so
Very
on.
Good. Yeah.
As an incentive, I mean, it's not like we can really afford it, but we need to let them know that we have their back and our staff, and that we're looking at long term. We're looking at long term, so we're gonna have to be able to cut back in certain areas and sacrifice in certain areas, but I need to keep my staff happy.
Right.
So going back to the meats, I want to try and start doing something with local chicken. Every Independence, Creole season, Carnival, we try our best to use that, but it's not something that is sustainable financially to use on a regular basis because of the cost,
And because of the quality probably as well too, no?
No, well, to be honest, the local chicken quality is pretty good. I remember as a child when my mother was telling me she's going to cook local chicken, I was running from the house because I know that was going to be rubber. But now the local chicken that you get is as tender as the imported.
Okay, that's good.
All the chemicals you can roast it, you can bake it, you can stuff it, you can fry it, you can do anything you can do with the imported chicken. Right?
That's good to know.
And you have that natural or that local non-chemical flavor.
Right.
The local chicken we get in Dominica is pretty good.
So the quality is good, right?
The quality is good, definitely. Definitely.
But in terms of beef and the
Beef
other
and
types of
pork,
meat and
yes.
so on.
Beef and pork we do get locally. I've tried goat a couple of times, but the aroma is just too strong.
Right.
Guiyave has some very particular customers, so they know what they want, and they demand quality, and they will not accept that. So we have to wait until we can get that again.
So there's need for like a training for butchers.
Oh, I definitely think so.
Yeah, the different cuts of meat and all of that.
Besides that, there needs to be some kind of concession from the government or from the authorities to make it competitive price-wise.
Right.
So the average person and the restaurants, the hotels would be able to afford to use them. You know, keep the currency circulating within the country.
Right, right.
I mean, as much as we promote it, we promote local, we promote healthy eating, whatever it is. If the price is not right, it's not going to kick off.
Right.
You know, it's not going to kick off.
So with all of those challenges in mind, where do you see Guiyave 5-10 years from now? Maybe,
in spite of the challenges, I think we still has a bright future. We are thinking ahead. We are thinking out of the box. We are putting things in place. We are sacrificing now to widen our education, our knowledge, to change. Not change in terms of leaving what we are used to go into new stuff, but bettering what we already have and adding new stuff to that. You know, so I think in 5-10 years, Guiyave will still be as strong or even much stronger. You know, a couple of years ago we renovated our patisserie and made it more modern. You know, people felt that was a huge plus. You know, just a couple of months ago we were able to put back our flowers on the veranda. I'm sure you'd remember those flowers.
Yes.
Which people love because it's a kind of give them a sense of privacy.
Yeah, and gives that ambience as well, almost like you're in a garden. You're almost sitting in a garden. Yeah.
Right, you know what I mean? And right now we are looking into planting different herbs into those flower pots.
Right.
So you know that aroma can be passed on to the customers whilst they're eating. So on. So I think we have has a definite bright future. It's going to be a lot of work. That's nothing new to us. 38 years we've been working hard. We've had a lot of ups and downs, like I've said, but we will get there.
All right. So, Ronald, thank you so much. I wish you continued success, even greater success than you already have.
Thank you.
I would like you to come back, especially when you in your full-fledged celebration of your 40th year, or when you decide that you're doing that Guiyave cookbook. I welcome you to come back. And even without that, we do some stuff on TDN radio on This Week in Interview. I think that would, there's a place for Guiyave in some of the things that we do. So
my pleasure being here, and I would be willing to come back anytime.
Yeah, and I enjoyed our conversation. I had a blast. I know, just like some of my guests texted me, now you have me hungry.
It went a lot faster than I thought.
But yeah, it's an hour for Dominican food. But we covered a lot. So, good luck and all the best. And once again, thank you. My guests are texting me and telling me, they're really looking forward to going to Guiyave next time they go back to Dominica.
I appreciate that.
I live in Brooklyn. Maybe we can do a Guiyave in Brooklyn. Who knows?
Well, I have been asked. I have been asked to do it in St. Lucia, in Antigua, in New York.
Yeah.
But nothing is off the table.
Yeah, because you go to different restaurants. You see a Trinidadian restaurant, Jamaican restaurant. We don't have an Eastern Caribbean, OECS, I should say, place to eat so much. It would be nice. But all the best, and let's do this again soon. All right.
You're the best also with your radio show.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Blessings.
All right. Bye bye. I hope. Sorry about that. My mic was muted. I hope you see what I was talking about in terms of the conversation that I had with Ronald. He was upbeat. He was poised and serious, and just really in its element, as I said before. And I asked him, where would Guiyave be in 5, 10 years time? And he said, Guiyave is not going anywhere. Guiyave is here to stay. They've been there for almost 40 years. He was excitedly looking forward to the celebration of the 40th anniversary of Guiyave. Guiyave started in 1981, so 2021 would have been 40 years, but nobody saw COVID coming. And COVID changed so many things. With the passage of Hurricane Maria knocking all the businesses in Dominica onto the back foot, and then that's 1-2 punch, COVID, really changed the fortunes of a lot of these businesses. And unfortunately, we have turned out to be not being able to survive that rocky experience. But we are grateful for the time that it was there. We're grateful for Ronald. We're grateful for his family for setting it up so that he could share his passion with us. And if you have the wherewithal and you're a restaurateur, why can't we continue the legacy and have a Guiave in Brooklyn or in Atlanta or in Houston, right? So listeners, you know, um, we wish our friend bon voyage. After that conversation, I really felt as if he and I were friends, even if we never really met. We continued to keep in touch with each other and so on. And you know, they say may his soul rest in peace, but it's not even so much rest in peace. He's journeying the ancestors and he's on a different plane right now. Um, so we wish him, Godspeed. To wherever he is next, going to show up. And for those of you who are mourning, we wish you comfort. Stay tuned, listeners, as time goes on, as we will definitely bring more information as we get it about Ronald and where his final respects and so on. I hope you, even if it was it's somber because of the circumstances, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you learned as much as I did at the time that we ran that interview. Um, and good evening, everyone. Uh, just stay strong, and we'll see you again next week, Wednesday, for another episode of This Week in Interview.